Yeah, it was. What's up?
Good day, Internet.
Hello, Internet.
What's going on, internet?
Hi, Internet.
Hello. I think I've been to Texarkana twice, and that was on the same road trip. And the only reason I know that
10
name,
freeway. It's long road going 90 miles an hour.
you would miss the town
Nothing.
if not for the sign. But the only reason why I know what Texarkana is because of Smokey and the Bandit, right? The song "Eastbound and Down," like he sings that, like he brings. That's the only reason why it's familiar to me.
I'm assuming that's at the northern part of the state near. Oh
Yeah.
no, actually, I don't know. Where is Texarkana?
It's kind
It's
of in
on
the middle
yeah.
on the border from Texas to Arkansas.
Yeah, it's basically
through
on the
most
border
of
of
the state.
Arkansas, western side of Arkansas and Texas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say, the whole thing about like food in the South, like being in larger portions, like ginormous portions, is true. Because I ate right outside of, I was with my friends, and we ate right outside of Little Rock, and we ate one of those like rail cars, those dining rail cars that got converted into like a diner. And I made like, I'll get a short stack and scrambled eggs and sausage and hash browns. The freaking pancakes. They're only three cakes, but they're like this thick, and they're the size of like a dinner plate each. It's like, well, I didn't realize they would be like bigger than my head. You can order meat. It's like, I guess I should because you brought it up.
Yeah, I don't like the restaurants where it's like the little food to where it's like I'm supposed to eat this and pay what you pay for it. But I don't want so much food that I always have to take stuff home because I can only take stuff home if I'm going home. If I'm going somewhere else, I don't like just leaving food sit in the car or sometimes you don't even have a car.
Have you had an amuse-bouche?
Oh,
I have not.
What's a amuse-bouche?
No. It is a meal in one serving, like a spoonful or a fork.
Oh, so it's like
to be deconstructing something and turning
so
it into
they have
one
something
spoonful.
very similar in prison. They call it what do they call it?
Okay, different.
No, they call it something, not a penalty loaf. They call it basically they take
it's
everything
just-
that's on
Yeah.
loaf.
And they mash it into a patty.
prison.
And it's
No,
horrific.
the neutral loaf. It's called the neutral loaf, and they take everything that goes on your tray and they just put it in a blender and they make it into just a large lump of loaf of something, and you're supposed to eat it. It's a disciplinary measure for getting out of hand. I don't know.
That's not an amuse-bouche. That's different.
It's true. It's more than just one spoonful.
So, Rob, are you like a person that wants to go like claim jumpers where they have monster meals?
Claim jumpers.
I don't eat like that. So I like a nice restaurant, but I just like to have a regular size meal. I mean, I'm a big dude, so I can put away a lot of food, but it's not necessarily good for you. I don't want to eat to the point to where I'm full and then I'm trying to go do something after the fact. So
That's the worst.
I like just a sizable meal that I can get full off of if I were to eat the whole thing, and I won't feel bad about the little bit that I don't eat, so that I'm not full, that I need to take it home with me.
I'm down with that. I don't know. I've never eaten at a claim. I've had their frozen, like whatever the mud pie thing, whatever they used to sell in the freezer section. I've never actually eaten at one. It's weird. I generally avoid chain restaurants. It's just something about them. Like I didn't eat at the Cheesecake Factory until I was like in my late 20s because I made it a point never to eat there. It's like so I'm not gonna eat the Cheesecake Factory.
Yes, but you can stop by and just get a piece of cheesecake.
Well, I made an exception for Baker Square because they had really good like baked goods. I was sorely disappointed by Outback Steakhouse because a colleague brought me there. It's like, Roger, this place is great. It's like, I guess, having been to Australia multiple times and eaten there, none of this is what I would recognize as Australian. And also, this chicken is very rubbery, which tells me whoever either cooked it, A, didn't care, or B, they left it on too long on the grill.
Overcooked chicken is the worst.
And it's so easy to avoid.
Yeah, it really is.
And then, what's the Ruth Chris Steakhouse? There was one that I was super disappointed at. I know they're fans of it, but listen, if you need to cook your steak with butter on it, you ain't cooking steak. You just covered up someone else's mistake. And two, Morton's Steakhouse, I thought it was okay, but it wasn't really outstanding.
Yeah, I've only ever been there on someone else's dime, in which case it tasted fine, even though it is sticks and sticks of butter. I had the mashed potatoes. I'm like, is there potato in here?
Nope. So am I supposed to fill up on the potatoes and just kind of shrug at the steak? Or?
Yeah, well, for up here, the Keg is like our big chain steakhouse, and it's fine. It's fine. It's really overpriced right now, but it used to be affordable.
Well, it's kind of... So when you described the Keg last time, it reminded me of a place. I don't know if it's nationwide, but Cask and Cleaver, is that a national chain?
I have not heard of it. I'm not saying it's not national. I've not heard of it.
Okay. So, I mean, at least in California was a thing up in Northern Cal, Cask and Cleaver, and that was sort of like a steak, like Black Angus, like level, like steakhouse, can give you other stuff, but not like... I don't know. Is Black Angus and Hungry Hunter like at the same price point, or are they slightly is one above the other?
These days, who knows?
I don't know. As I get older, I can eat less red meat, so it doesn't really matter because I only eat chicken when I go to a restaurant. It's like, I have gout. I can't eat this much red meat, even with the medication.
What is that called? The condition of kings or something like that.
Oh, it's called the rich man's disease.
I knew it was something like that.
Something. It was used to be associated with gluttony and a privileged existence because you would eat very rich food like red meat a lot, which would inflame your gout. But Asians, especially East Asians, are particularly prone to it as we get older. So that I have to avoid red meat. I have to avoid mushrooms. I have to avoid broccoli, cauliflower, spinach.
Oh, I love broccoli.
Yeah, all those things I love.
And soy, so I can't eat tofu, soybeans. So you're killing me here, man.
Yeah.
So I basically eat like a hermit at this point. It's just like chicken and brown rice.
I used to get gout confused with scurvy, and it's like, no, those are very different things, Jen.
Yes. I mean, all you need is some orange juice or a lemonade a week, and you're set for scurvy. Rickets, that's the one I used to confuse with scurvy. Rickets and scurvy. One is a lack of vitamin D, and the other one's a lack of vitamin C.
The important thing is none of them are fun.
2 minutes.
Brittle bones with rickets.
Oh, brittle bones. I mean, I eat yogurt every day now. I think it was Tom that told me. It's like, yeah, as dudes get older, right? They're like, like women, you experience bone loss, but because men tend to have denser bone, it's not as readily apparent, but it's still a thing, and you got to keep an eye on it. And now I got to watch everything. What's the point of eating? It just takes the fun out of life.
So you just want everything in a pill?
I mean, at this point,
just give him his pellets. Roger wants his food pellets.
Give me that Soylent that guy in the
oh god
revision in that same building. Revision 3 was at. That was the guy who conjured up Soylent. That meal replacement powder.
I want to be surprised, but I'm not.
They bragged on the blog. It's like, I haven't had to have a BM in like a week. And I was going to go up to that guy and say,
no, I mean, you should.
That's what I'm saying. Because he was saying that his food was so complete, it was being completely absorbed by your body. And I was about to go up to him, and it's like I don't think
that's not how it
medically works. That's healthy.
That's not how,
that's how it works at all.
Doctor?
Not good.
Listen, I get it. You're onto something, but I don't know. I would rather drink a bottle of Ensure and just brush my teeth.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
I'm not against a good protein shake every now and again, but I have canines and molars
for a reason.
For a reason. I like to bite into stuff and chew it up.
I guess we're going. Have a good show, everybody.
Good day, Internet. This is the DTNS Live for Thursday, July 10th, 2025 from Columbus, Ohio. And your host for today, I'm Robb Dunewood.
From Toronto, home of the sadly recently lost their winning streak Blue Jays, I'm Jenn Cutter.
And where am I? I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang. DTNS Live is made possible by you, all of you. Thanks to all of you, including High Tech Okie, Chris Zaragoza, and Jim Hart.
Welcome to DTNS Live, the show where we discuss the tech news, let you know what's going on, and hopefully help us all understand a little bit better. How is everyone doing? Jen Cutter, it's been a minute since you and I have been on the show together. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's really nice. Like, we see each other in passing and obviously work communications all the time. But yeah, we're never on the same show. It is always a pleasure.
Yeah, and Roger Chang, it's been 24 hours since you and I have been on a show
Yeah,
together. But I'll ask you the same question. How are you doing today?
I am, I'm comfortably nestled in the Central Valley of California, but it's also going to be over 100 today. So I don't know how comfortable I'm going to be because, like most parts of California, when it gets the hottest, everyone turns on the AC. And not only does it increase the cost of electricity, it just makes things very unbearable. But
that's pretty warm. But warm. I hear it's a dry heat, that it's not terribly humid. So, blessings thanks for small blessings. Yeah. Well, folks, if you're watching or listening live, you can name this episode. We want you to head over to dtns.showbot.tv where you can submit titles and vote on them. And later in the show, we'll come back and we'll check. And you can submit as many as you want. You can vote on as many as you like. And so, like I said, just, help us name the show. It's a good time. So now let's kick it off with some few stories that caught our eye. Rumong Pang, who used to lead Apple's foundational models team, has been snagged by Meta. Rumor has it he's getting over $200 million stretched out over a few years. Apparently, that kind of cash is par for the course for the big names Meta's brought into their superintelligence labs team, like Nat Friedman, Alexander Wang, and Daniel Gross. We should probably also note that The Verge has got some reporting that not everyone that Meta is offering these jobs to are taking them. Some folks are saying that the grass is not necessarily greener on the other side, or for work-life balance, or they just don't like Meta. They don't want to go over, but they're not necessarily the ones getting offered $200 million. That's a lot of money.
I mean, even if it was over 10 years, like, you're there for a year and it's like, so long, I'm going to go buy an island and retire.
I can't even pretend to visualize that kind of number.
I'll say this much. When you're at that point where your day-to-day existence isn't really dependent on a regular income, like you're just minted for life, your outlook on everything changes. And it's like, I'm gonna go eat a Golden Corral for lunch every day for like a month.
Yeah, it's $200 million. It's not just your life; that's generational wealth. Your family should literally be set forever after that.
And I want to know what those other companies offered their employees to say, hey, don't take that, offer. I got something much better. Like, hey, we're gonna give you a new talking car or something. I don't know. Or they have a really big pull and it's like, I can drop you in the next Star Wars movie in the background as an alien.
The intangibles.
Cool. It is. It definitely is. I mean, again, when you got that much money. All right. The Joint Electronic Device Engineering Council, or JEDEC, published their first LPDDR6 standard, making it the first official mention of DDR6. Now, LPDDR6 will have a data rate of 10,667 to 14,400 mega transfers per second. That equals about to 28.5 gigabytes per second to 38.4 gigabytes per second. Gigabytes, not gigabits. Now, the form factor for LPDDR, if anyone is unclear, is meant for mobile devices and laptops currently. Now, the group hopes to have a finalized specification for DDR6, typically aimed at desktop machines and servers, hopefully by the end of the year.
How long do you think it will actually take before we start seeing that kind of memory inside of a phone?
I give it 2 years.
Nice.
Because, I mean, at this point, it's like, people are going to want the next big thing. And if you're going to do 8K level video recording, you need memory that's fast enough to buffer it before it dumps it in your flash storage device on your phone.
Yeah, see, I love that you went for cameras, and my brain immediately goes to like, oh my God, gaming on a phone is just going to get cooler and cooler.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually thinking, I said phone, but I probably should have said an actual camera, because I think that's probably one of the first places you'll see it. People are going to be sticking it into their actual camera to see how quickly they can move data on and off of, off of a phone or off of a camera.
Speaking of gaming, SAG-AFTRA celebrated after 95% of members voted to ratify the IMA, or Interactive Media Agreement. This wide-ranging contract offers protections for voice actors and performance capture artists around the use of generative AI, gets them some pay raises, and new safety standards for on-set stunts with major video game developers. IMA negotiations lasted over 2 years, with the union calling for a vote for strike authorization back in September 2023.
I mean, this sounds like a good deal, right? I mean, 95% of the members voting for it. I mean, that's a pretty. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
That's
It
not
was
overwhelming.
more
That's
than
almost complete.
it was more than like, oh, we really want to go back to work. It was the protections. It was the getting paid for if they agree to AI stuff, that when it gets used for other games, they still get money, which was initially a problem. I
mean,
can't believe that was a problem.
And in your experience, Jen, I mean, typically when the big studios sign on to this, does this sort of filter down to like the more mid-size and maybe smaller game devs, where it's like, okay, we also have to play by the same rules, or can they be a little more creative with the with the ways these are implemented?
Originally, like back in, I don't know, 2021, I would have said like, yes, of course this will trickle down. But now with all the upheaval, I think some smaller pubs, especially those who, are losing funding or are on the precipice, may look for cheaper alternatives outside of people who've signed on to the agreement. But the thing I want to see come back from like the true indies, you may have heard the term programmer art, and then occasionally like, programmers will just do the temp voice acting tracks and then they get out. I love those. I want to hear the programmers talk. Immortalize yourselves in the game, guys.
If nothing else, you have your name on 11, 12, 13, 17, 27 different places in the credits at the end of the game. That's kind of awesome as well.
Like lampshaded, be the same NPC in every town. Just sound this. Don't even hide it. Just use your exact same voice.
There's that 90s PC game, Mean Streets, that was done by Access Software, and the developer literally was Chris Jones is the programmer developer for the game, and he played the titular character in all of them, including the ones with full motion video. So you get to see community college acting in your games. But at the time, moving video was awesome enough, so people would just accept. But it also had Barry Corbin in it, so.
Well, those are the top 3 stories that caught our eye for today. So, folks, let's dive a little deeper into some of the discussions. And let's start it off with Cloudflare and some of the really interesting changes the company is making. Cloudflare recently introduced Content Independence Day. That was last week. A significant policy shift that prohibits AI companies from scraping protected websites without compensating content creators. This changes how the web economy really is going to work very fundamentally. Before, companies like Google would be able to freely index pretty much whatever they wanted. And the agreement was that Google will go and they'll send their Google bot and they'll crawl your site and they will, they'll scrape your content. But in exchange, they will send you traffic when people search their engine to find content that is based off of what they searched that matches you. With LLMs, that's not really the case anymore. So what Cloudflare is doing is saying that we're going to make the scrapers, basically they're going to make the companies like Google and Anthropic and Perplex, all these different big companies that are scraping all this data. You've got to now jump through some hoops, whether it be, working out a deal or paying directly for the content. You've got some things you've got to do now.
I mean, does this sort of make Cloudflare sort of the unofficial sheriff, so to speak, of how a lot of this stuff is going to be managed moving forward? Because they are a really big player, right? It's not just like a mid-size internet services company saying like we're gonna be the morally upstanding community player here. We're gonna do this and this. This is a company with some teeth, right? They can really stomp down hard on.
Oh, they
bad
definitely
actors.
can. That is a super really good point, Roger. Because Cloudflare CEO Matthew Prince, he's saying this stuff with his chest. He was on X, and he's saying that they're already blocking some big AI players. Back on the 3rd, he said that Gemini is blocked by default. So that means Google's bot, which is one of the biggest ones out there, they just are blocking it. So Google's going to have to work out a deal. Cloudflare protects anonymous or protects anyone unless they pay for this data. So the thing that is really interesting to me, if this is what they're doing, and Cloudflare is massive, 20% of the internet goes through their system. So if this is what they're doing and they're blocking it, they really actually can make these big companies change their tune on some things. So I'm really kind of wondering, what does all this mean? As I said, I think it could fundamentally change how the internet operates today. And I think that when you look at a company as big as Cloudflare is, that they may be saying, you know what, here's another line of business that we can go into. We are going to be the broker in many cases here, where, like I think some of the biggest companies, they will work out deals directly. But for the smaller publishers, definitely for the independent publishers, I don't know that the companies are going to want to work with them individually. So does Cloudflare kind of step in that vacuum and say, hey, as long as you're putting your stuff on our platform, we will take care of this for you, and we'll just take some points off the top.
It's not unlike in a way like kind of like mutual funds, right? When you invest in the stock market, you can do mutual funds, which are often grouped in tranches of different things, right? When you buy Vanguard, you're not buying the company Vanguard, you're buying like all these different funds that are part of it. It could definitely be a plus. On the other hand, I do see the internet of today being a little different than the internet of yesterday, or even 10 years ago. Enough deep pockets and enough moneyed interest that I can see this, if this becomes more than just an annoyance, that somebody or a group of somebodies are going to contact all the people they've been lobbying for the past 8 years to maybe come up with a bill that challenges this. Make sort of a legal play to all right, like, that's cute. Well, let's see what you do when we pull the full weight of the U.S. federal government on it.
Yeah, well, moneyed interest will always act like moneyed interest, and then the smaller interests, the subscriber-funded interests, I cannot wait to see what they do about this. I'm thinking of places like 404, Aftermath in gaming, Defector, the fantastic crew over at Defector. How are they going to handle this when they are so very publicly and on purpose viewer and reader funded, and maybe like us? How are we going to handle this at, say, DTNS or as a smaller creator? Like, for me personally, I know that if AI scrapes all my stuff and puts it in the AI answer block, I can't claim that I'm losing millions of dollars. Like, I have taken all ads off my website ages ago, since I tend to just write for different web publications now rather than my own site. So I know I am not directly losing money. But places like 404, Breaking Stories, Defector doing amazing work. Do those boxes cost them money when it comes to factual things? Have you guys not clicked on a website because of the AI block, or are you like me where you hide the AI block so you don't even have to see it?
I'll be honest. I have asked a question, and the answer that I get from the AI summary, it answered the question. So that ended what I was doing. I got the information I was looking for. I didn't think about, oh wow, wait a minute, I probably did not go to the website and potentially see an ad that would have paid the publisher. It wasn't until you just said it now that I thought about it. I've thought about it in the macro, but just thinking about, I just did that earlier today, where the AI overview was exactly what it was that I was looking for. But that in essence is the problem. If the traffic is no longer being sent to the publisher, this becomes a bigger problem even for the LLMs, for the AI companies, because if the publishers go out of business because they're not being paid for the content that they create, then the LLMs aren't going to have content that they can go scrape and give you the overviews that they're giving you right now. So it's probably in everyone's best interest for them to get this figured out. Now, I think that the factors are probably not close to each other on who is going to do what and how much we're going to pay. Those will have to be discussions that will be had. But I do see Cloudflare here saying, hey, we can be the middleman. I could even see to where right now people pay to be on Cloudflare. I could see a situation to where you're on Cloudflare and they just take out what you would pay them to actually host and do all the stuff that they're doing with your content to keep those DDoS attacks from happening to your content. That's just a part of it's basically just the VIG that they're taking out of what they pay you now that you're allowing the bots to come and scrape you. So I see a new business model for Cloudflare, and I wonder how the big search engines and how the big OpenAIs and those kind of companies of the world are going to react to it.
What's interesting is the fact that Cloudflare is doing this, like such a big player. It does send a signal that there are definitely opportunities here to kind of leverage that, because there's a palpable concern about the amount of training data or whatever data scraped. Truthfully, it could be is that their websites are being scraped, and this does offer a level of service that wasn't available before, right? Like before, no one could say, yeah, I can protect you against AI bots scraping your site without your permission. And it'll be interesting. You are right. Like if they get something worked out ahead of time, especially the big players, that means a lot of this stuff will not have to go through more legal channels, at least for the main players. But at the same time, there's always a spoiler in one of these things because, that's just the way life works. But I mean, this is definitely not a bad turn of events in my perspective.
Yeah, like I can't go to Gemini and negotiate. I don't exist to them. But if I pay Cloudflare and they're dealing with this for me, that gives me the peace of mind and possibly, sense off my fees. But having that protection, and like you said, from a major company like Cloudflare, I would trust Cloudflare's stats over what Gemini tells me.
I probably would trust Cloudflare today more,
yes.
But once there's additional financial responsibility that they have to pay, that trust probably diminishes a little bit. I'm probably going to always trust them more than I'm going to trust the AI company, because the AI company wants to pay as little as possible, at least in Cloudflare's, at least from their standpoint. It behooves us to get as much from that company, because the more we get, the more you get, and the more you get, the more we get as a VIG. So,
the scary part is the pivot to video, as we all may recall from Facebook, with just stats everywhere.
And there is a window on this, right? Like the days of just sort of harvesting the ocean of the internet for training data is coming to a close, because there are better sources of data, especially if you want to narrow focus your LLMs to specific things, right? If you need something to tell you how to, for example, run a restaurant, you don't need everything on the internet. You don't need TMZ. You don't need all that information. You just need a specific swath of data. And the whole concept of data brokers, Rob, actually makes sense, because then they can kind of group these sites and say, you know what, all these 500 sites, they run restaurants or in some way part of the hospitality industry. That's the kind of data you're looking for. We can give it to you. It's targeted. We can sort of prune it ahead of time, so you're not just getting a bunch of dead branches as you're ingesting it. So you get higher quality data, more relevant data. It definitely does seem like it's something that could prove to be a win-win. I say that now. I could be totally wrong in a year's time for the players involved.
So it's one of these things to where, Cloudflare, they got 20% of the internet. We will be talking about this again. But Intel seems to be going through a moment right now. Roger, can you fill us in on what's going on with them?
Yeah, so in a conversation broadcast to global Intel employees, so around the world, Intel CEO Luc Bontan said that he does not consider the company among the top leading chip companies. Quote, 30 years ago, we are really the leader. Now I think the world has changed. We are not in the top 10 semiconductor companies. Tan added that customers are giving up on Intel, or giving Intel failing grades, and that Intel is too far behind the AI technology curve to catch up with leaders like NVIDIA. However, a spokesperson for Intel wanted to clarify that Tan was referring to market value and not technological leadership. Now, there's a little bit of maybe miscommunication involved or not. But what's interesting is TAN is really kind of wanting to refocus the company's semiconductor efforts in the AI space to edge areas that aren't already been staked out by the larger companies like NVIDIA, or even like Amazon or Google with their own custom chips, which brings AI capabilities directly to PCs. So in other words, instead of developing processors for cloud AI, they're looking at developing chips that would reside locally on your laptop, on your PC, where you can do on-device LLMs or machine learning, while maybe not as capable, is definitely more secure and probably more targeted to what you need instead of just sort of a catch-all approach. As well as they also want to look at agentic AI. And of course, I mentioned this earlier in the week, Intel is kind of trying to refocus away from the 18A node process that they've been working on and flogging for the past year and a half to the cutting edge 14A process. So I guess my question is, like, where does this leave Intel? Because Intel feels like IBM of the early 90s, where IBM became so big and so lacked focus that it was literally all its PC market share was literally eaten up by Dell, by Compaq, by Radio Shack through their Tandy computers, where everyone who made it PC compatible was just taking a chunk out of Big Blue's bottom line. And I think Intel you know what they say, the first step to on the road to recovery is to admit you have a problem, and this could very well be it.
I always find it extremely interesting when right after someone at a company that has a C and an O in their title, especially when it's a C and E and an O in their title, is corrected moments later by someone that is a spokesperson. That is always very interesting to me, because usually these folks say exactly what they mean. I don't think that there was any ambiguity in what was said by the CEO of the company. And then, let's go clean that up because it didn't sound great. So I don't have any inside knowledge on this. I haven't been talking to anyone, but the way that the CEO of Intel is talking makes it sound like we are open to listen to offers. Maybe he wants to sell additional pieces of the company off. I don't know that. These are things that have been talked about in the past before he actually took over. So it wouldn't shock me if those conversations are still happening now that he's there. But he did not paint his company in a good light. And it could be that, as you said, Roger, that we're just telling you how it really is so that we can tell the world this is what's going on, and we're going to put a plan in place and we're going to get better. But oftentimes when you hear stuff like this, the getting better is we're going to sell this part of the business to this company. We're going to sell that part of the business to that company.
Yeah, I actually don't see this as that bad a thing. Like, this is costing them money in the short to medium term for sure. They've said it is raining, but this could also be an umbrella. If they are focusing on this more narrow band, they're focusing on a more local, this does protect them a little. It may be trending that way, the data center market and the giant cloud things start failing and closing and everyone reduces their investments, they are insulated from that, which may in the long term really protect them from this falling out of a bottom of a market.
I mean, they were recipients and beneficiaries of the CHIPS Act. Like they did, like there was a factory they were building in Ohio, a semiconductor fab. Is that going to go through with completion? Is that going to be a finished product? Is it going to be a finished working facility? I mean, this does throw a lot of question marks in the air. What isn't in question is that Intel has seen its share, not just on the desktop, but specifically in data centers, seeing its market dominance slowly eroded year after year after year. And the fact that they were so caught off guard by the AI revolution, especially the way NVIDIA has literally taken off. Like it went from being a jumbo jet to a rocket ship. And not literally, figuratively, from a jumbo jet to a rocket ship. And they have literally just been doing their one stepstone to one stepstone to another one on success. And Intel has literally been playing catch up and trying to do a rear guard action. I think they really need to figure out their processor roadmap, and they really need to figure out their fabbing process so they can at least fab chips for themselves in a manner that is more than just satisfactory to do, a commodity run. Like, you want to make sure you don't have the problems that you've had with the 13th, 14th generation Raptor Lake chips, where you have there are corrosion issues, or you apply the wrong voltage, overclocking, and you could permanently ruin a $300-400 CPU. These are things that need to be taken care of, because these are not issues that that Intel has been someone like Intel's position has had to deal with. And I will note that the company is now worth half. It's worth around $100 billion today. Is basically half what it was just 18 months ago. So the markets aren't looking too favorably on Intel's current course. So this could be a signal to investors that there is a recognition that something's terribly off. But there isn't a game plan yet in place, or at least that is clear, that will see it come back to profitability.
The super foundry that they're building about 10-12 miles from where I live, when they started working on this and initially broke ground, it was like, oh wow, we're going to have to actually do phases 1. I think it was supposed to be 5 phases, and they said that stuff was coming so fast that we need to build phase 1 and 2 right off the bat. And less than 3 years later, we're in a phase to what in a situation where they don't even know if they're going to finish phase 1. So they were trying to get 3 of the 5 done almost instantaneously, and now we don't even know if we're going to get just 1 phase done. And they've already broken ground. I mean, there's construction that has already happened, and they just don't know what is going to happen. We hear about Intel just on the weekly, the regular weekday news, almost daily, just because there's so much investment that's supposed to go into the central Ohio area, and it all seems like that is all but dried up.
Yeah, there's so many unknowns everywhere, because Intel, like with every chip company, what is the legal framework going to be going forward between all of these countries? What rules are going to be passed about this kind of thing? How do you juggle for that in the future with just infinite unknowns?
And it does really underscore, and I mentioned this, I think last week, that the semiconductor market is something that operates on decade-long cycles, right? It's not something you can spin up in 2 years and say, aha, I have a fab, right? You need a minimum of 5 years to put the building together and incorporate all the equipment. You still need a little more time after that to be fabbing regularly, where you actually have a manufacturing process that is producing chips that are you're selling to the wider market. And as we've all seen, the market's changing very quickly, right? TSMC is already on their next generation node process, and it's going to get only more competitive. Global Foundries spun out of AMD about 18 or 12 years ago, and they are also falling behind because it requires a lot of capital to invest in the technology, but also to invest in the training for the personnel to operate those machines. So you do get a wafer, like a 300 millimeter wafer, and you're producing at least 80% of it is functional chips, and you're not coming out with like less than 20% yield, which was the case with Intel, where you're literally just wasting silicon because you're not having enough workable product coming off a wafer. All right. Now, folks at home and listening in your cars, what do you want us to hear? What do you want to hear us talk about on the show? One way to let us know is on our subreddit. So submit your stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show today.
Usually when we talk about LLMs like ChatGPT making stuff up, it's not framed in a positive way. People generally don't like it when their chatbots hallucinate. But this time, Jen, the situation is a little bit different. Why don't you tell us what's going on?
In my memory, and as longtime listeners know, I'm not a huge fan of ChatGPT and other kind of AI things. But this is the first positive hallucination end result ever. So Soundslice is a program that can be used to digitize sheet music from photos or PDFs and can sync the scrolling of the notation with audio and video recordings. And it's got options like slowing down playback for learning sections, stuff like that. It's super neat. If you're into music, check it out. Now, the co-founder of Soundslice, Adrian Holovati, recently discovered their error logs were filling up with screenshots of what appeared to be ChatGPT conversations containing guitar tabs. If you are unfamiliar with guitar tabs, it looks like a bunch of dashes and numbers that vaguely resemble a guitar neck or fretboard, and it makes it easier for non-musicians like me to fake my way through playing songs on a guitar like I did in grade school learning Final Fantasy VI background music. But anyway, in his blog post talking about the discovery, Holovati wrote, "We've never supported ASCII tabs. ChatGPT was outright lying to people and making us look bad in the process, setting false expectations about our service." Then, even though this feature was not on their to-do list, Soundslice went ahead and made it. This is a thing you can do now. If you sign up with an account and submit guitar tabs, you can get the musical notation to learn how to do things properly.
So this is one of those situations where having spent some time in my career as a product managers are probably in two camps right now. They absolutely hate this story because it's like, oh, wow, geez, more work. Stuff that I didn't even come up with that I've now got to figure out how to make work. Or they're loving it because it's like, I don't have to go do that market research anymore. The market research is kind of done for me for free. Everybody's looking for this stuff that doesn't exist. Maybe we should just create it so that they look for us, and we could solve a problem that we didn't even know that people were having.
Who needs forums? I can just check my error logs.
I mean, it does sort of underscore the fact that like good ideas are all around, right? You know, you look at things as diverse as like the sunshade. Remember when those things came out back in the 80s? Like, whoa, what a brand idea! And a pleated piece of cardboard you can stick on your dash so it doesn't overheat in your car during the summer. I mean, this is good. I mean, one thing that LLMs are good at is doing relatively quick iterative concepts on things that already exist, right? So things like music notation or even ideas about like, how to make a better car. Maybe stick the steering wheel in the middle of the dash, which is a terrible idea unless you're a race car driver. But I mean, it's definitely something I think is both humorous, but also a sign of the fact that, LLMs have uses outside of what we need to ask it for specifically. Like, what times does a 7-Eleven close? Some 7-Elevens close. Or where can I pick up where in my neighborhood can I do dry cleaning or any of the just kind of basic prosaic things you do day to day. It can help you with maybe more fanciful stuff.
I imagine that companies like Soundslice and many, many others, they will probably start looking to setting up their own bot within their within the confines of their organization so that people can have these conversations and talk to it and ask questions, and they'll use that for signals as for what they should be doing from a product management standpoint. Now, in the real world, we do not want a bot to hallucinate because people are already starting to take information that they get from bots like ChatGPT, and if ChatGPT said it, it must be true. And clearly that's not the case. It was not the case here, but because they saw the signals and they actually were getting a little bit of bad press about the things they never created that people were upset about, they said, well, let's go and create it. Since so many people want it, it probably will be a product that will do well. So there is a rainbow at the end of this story, but I wouldn't want regularly to have bots just hallucinating stuff, and that makes work for developers to go create things that was not part of their product line, because that really does make a lot more work for them. A lot of times it just simply wouldn't make sense to do it, but you kind of have to deal with it if the public thinks that something is the case and it actually isn't the case. You almost, it's a lose-lose situation. It's like you're upset at us about this thing that we didn't do. You're upset about this thing that we haven't created yet. We can create it, but we haven't done it yet. But you're upset about the things that actually didn't happen. This is a complete fabrication that was made up.
It is, I don't know if I want to say progression. Like, it is great that it is not telling people to put glue on their pizza. But as Roger was saying about the the sun blocker, it would not have occurred to me that guitar tabs weren't something considered in music notation. Because to me, that was one of my earliest exposures to musical notation. And it makes absolute sense for this to exist, for people to transition to proper notation, Royal Conservatory of Music stuff. But where else can this go? Like, the only AI or LLM things that I have experience with are transcribing software for voice notes, for interviews, for that kind of thing. And I was speaking with Ted Raymond, a Canadian CTV reporter. We were discussing about how, LLMs are really good at transcribing things now, but really bad at nuance, because of course they are. Because when you're getting transcriptions from Canadian politicians, it is not putting those words in the Canadian sense. There are no U's where there should be U's. So is that an evolution that can happen? And that's the thing that you don't need ChatGPT to tell you. You have the people using the software saying like, hey, can you fix this if we say we're Canadian? But what else can it quote unquote hallucinate that will be useful to people, which is again really hard to guess from all of the unknowns right now.
I think one of the big ones I know was I don't even know if the term hallucinate is accurate, because hallucination is a value judgment that we place, right? Obviously, this LLM does not understand the difference between Robb, Dunewood, and Robert Heron, even though both names start with R-O-B. And I think what will happen is in some cases within the pharmaceutical industry, where it can find new and novel uses for existing drugs, compounds already on the market to treat new ailments or little understood ailments that people have, and basically trying a combination of those things. I think where LLMs could definitely come into play is they could do a lot of iterative back and forth design on things that already exist and just kind of toss up new ideas, right? If you just need to throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, like, LLM, give me 20 ideas on how I can try to win the lottery, whether it's a scratcher or a Powerball or Mega Millions or whatever. Like, do I play every day? What days do I play? Like, it's always going to tell me, the lottery is a totally random thing and your chances are like 1 in 300 million, which is true. But it's like, but if you don't mind a much smaller amount, typically scratchers tend to give you a better return on the amount of money you spend. But again, you're still in a losing proposition, and it's at least with ChatGPT and Gemini, it flags that for me. But it's if you're coming up with, say, I need a new name for an awesome home mop that can also be that's also a dustpan and a broom, like all in one device. Give me some names for it. It could iterate on a bunch of things that already exist, and that what it's doing, you're less likely to be upset if it comes up with something called like the Swiffer mop, since something already like that exists. It's understanding the limitations, but also the kind of the field in which these products play, that I think you can then, when you understand the limitations, where the boundaries are, I think you can take advantage of what it does in a much more focused scope.
But you're driving that. You're the one asking. Yeah. Like, Soundslice discovered it by accident when they're trying to figure out what on earth was going on their back end.
They were having a customer service issue. Folks were literally calling them up. It's like, this isn't, it's not doing what it says it should do. And it's like, because that doesn't exist. It's not real. ChatGPT lied to you, and they made a product based off of what people thought existed from this. So this is a happy accident that it's an accident.
Because they're agile enough as a smaller company.
How many products do we use today are happy accidents, right? Post-it notes, happy accident. The guy was developing a stronger adhesive glue, and instead did the exact opposite. It came with the weakest adhesive, but it turned out it was super useful. Yeah, that's great. I could stick these notes on everyone's desk because they totally won't mind, and I'll tell them to show up at the meeting to bring this, and don't forget to call this client. Like, there's all these things. It's listen, life is full of
that's a little different though, because he was actually trying to do something. Soundslice wasn't trying to do anything here. ChatGPT said you probably should do this thing because we just told Earth that you do this thing that you don't do. You might want to trade.
As I said at the beginning of this discussion, you could get inspiration from anywhere, even from hallucinations.
Yeah. So speaking of AI and behavior of AI, YouTube has been rolling out some new features to help combat the rise of AI slop, and it plans on closing its trending feature. So Roger, tell us more.
Yeah, so to help, to combat this kind of AI generated content that's considered slop, YouTube will update its YouTube Partner Program, the YPP monetization policies, with more detailed guidelines on July 15th, specifically rules around what type of content can earn creators money and what cannot. And I mean, if you spend any time on YouTube, I'm sure you have noticed, depending on what subject matter you're looking for, there's a noticeable level of something that looks like it should be content, but when you watch it, it's like, what is this? Mm-hmm. And I think this is an acknowledgement that this has always been a problem. There's always been a problem. Wind history back 5 years, YouTube had a bunch of videos where people were just putting still or just public domain video clips and then just typing up a script and then having that whole YouTube narration narrated for you for something that approximated content, but whether or not anyone was really curious about it was a different matter. But because AI allows you to generate this stuff at a much larger scale, it's much easier to flood the zone, as it were, with this type of content.
So yeah, this is something that they have to address, and you can think of it like this: like spam works, which is why the companies keep doing it. They can generate, I'm talking about spam email. Email spam works enough that it makes sense for companies to continue to generate it because it works enough that they ultimately can make money from it. So in the case here, if one of the big issues that YouTube is having is that people will literally go out, grab some type of talking head video that's an explainer video, get the transcript of it, and then use an LLM to just spin that content a little bit and feed it right back into another video and do the narration. So they can do this at scale, and they can just make video after video after video, and it's so cheap to do that as long as we get one that hits and we make a few $100s off of it, and then they shut it down, we'll go on to the next one, make a few $100s. You have a business, not necessarily a legitimate business, but you do have a business if you are able to do those kind of things. And I think that that's what YouTube is saying. Okay, now we've got to nip this stuff in the bud as best we can before it gets more out of hand than it already has.
I mean, truthfully, it's not against the law to produce garbage, right? It's just because we don't find it satisfying or at least relevant. Again, like you said, spam. They do it because obviously someone's making enough money to make it a business. I think YouTube is recognizing that these tools have gotten to the point where it doesn't have to be a 12-person operation. It could be 2, it could be 1, right? I'm not going to go too far into it, but I do know someone who uses AI regularly to generate things like children's books that they sell on Amazon. Not a lot of money, but enough money for them to keep generating other books for children or for other for things like coursework if you want to study to be a nurse or something. And they post on Amazon, maybe $300 here, $500 there. It adds up over time.
I'm sure YouTube is very tired of when you search how to be a YouTube creator and you get these people who show off their multiple play buttons for multiple channels where they teach you, hey, here's how to make AI slop channels. You don't have to do any work. You can just do this. And I'm pretty sure they're tired of giving money to those channels. So this could also be seen as a cost-cutting move on YouTube's part. Now, we're going to learn more on the 15th about how specific they're going to get. And I do have some sympathy for people who may have a different definition of AI slop compared to the rest of us. Like, is it AI slop for the people who are creating the fake fan trailers of things that don't exist and will never exist? Like that Star Wars trailer that had 900,000 people in it. Is that slop, or is that going to be counted as creative in YouTube's new policy?
I mean that again, that's a value judgment, right? Mm-hmm. I was tickled pink when I saw the Lord of the Rings done like in a Rasta vibe, where there are things they're alluding to the halfling weed as it was described in the movie, but at the same time, I think this is actually one of the more effective ways, right? Whether or not you can monetize something, that's totally up to YouTube to decide. And by doing this, doesn't mean you can't upload it. It just means that you cannot generate it off YouTube's monetization system. Hopefully, this will maybe limit the amount of that kind of content. But at the same time, YouTube also has plans on sort of adjusting the way they do trending topics, right? If you've ever been to YouTube, you always have that one trending bar that tells you what's going viral. Most of the stuff I don't care about, and apparently YouTube doesn't care about either, because within the next couple of weeks, it's going to close its trending section, and instead it wants users to use the personalized recommendations and YouTube charts to find and explore new videos. Now, the difference is trending shows users which videos across the platform are currently going viral. YouTube charts, in contrast, sort of segments it down into specific categories. So say you're into music videos, podcasts, movie trailers, things about technology, things about world politics, things about food, travel, and more categories, at least according to YouTube, will be added over time. For right now, if you're super into gaming videos, you're super into streamers who are playing a game, whether it's something like that's old school, like a JRPG, or something newer, you can find those under the Gaming Explore page. But again, this is an understanding that not everyone wants everything from the YouTube, right? Because it's a very broad ocean, and not everyone wants everything in the sea. They only want specific stuff.
When trending topics came out, they were very useful. If I remember correctly, it was like maybe the mid 2010s is when they put, when this stuff first came out, and they were useful right up until maybe 2020. When the content that was showing up on YouTube just exploded because everybody was home and everybody decided, oh, I'm going to be a creator. I want to start making all kind of videos. So now the trending topics just don't really do anything for anyone anymore, because there's so much content that you would have to have trending for 1,000 different categories, which kind of defeats the purpose of having trending for anything. So that's probably why this is going away.
Yeah, there used to be, there was when all of the talk shows just dominated trending for a while. It's like, why is Jimmy Fallon the top 16 of the 20? It's trending.
Yes.
Nobody needs that. That's not helpful. I would still love to see YouTube increase the granularness of their gaming sections, because it is very broad and they're still terrible at
it's
showing
terribly
their live
weighted
stuff.
at certain things.
It is, but there's no avoiding, say, Mr. Beast in several trending categories. And I do actually like some of the recommendations they've been doing. Have you guys ever seen that little button that shows up in your Explorer feed saying, like, click here if you want to see something completely different? And you know what? Sometimes
I did
it's
it once,
neat.
and it was all right. I mean, at the time I was on a street food cooking kick, and it was basically just videos of people cooking street food. What's interesting is now how we have sort of a contradictory content recommendation system, right? One is everything. This is what all the popular kids are watching, right? And this is a customized feed based on an algorithm that's catering to what you watch, right? And so the idea is like, yeah, giving everyone what they want maybe isn't the best overarching policy, because we want them to discover things that maybe they aren't too familiar with or very watch a lot, but they might be interested in. And so it's a weird understanding, really, not just of the platform, but just kind of understanding how human groups work, right?
TikTok is absolutely showing all the other companies that's exactly the case, because it's like, maybe we shouldn't just let people pick what they want to see. Maybe we should put what we think they want. Instead of letting them pick what they want to see, let's put what we know they're interested in front of them and see how that works. And it's lucrative for TikTok. So I think that that's probably part of this too. That YouTube is saying, hey, we might need to do a little different here if we want to keep those ad revenue dollars coming in.
Well, I mean, it does benefit them if they can channel new creators toward new eyeballs, right? Because the idea is that you're sort of doing the Disney sort of farm school where you're generating new talent. because eventually all the Marcus Browns and whomever are going to get old, and people are going to want to see something new, even though it's the same content. I find it to be when a lot of money is involved in things that involve people watching, I'm always curious to see how they decide what gets shown, who it gets shown to, right? I mean, there's no concept of prime time in online video, right? It's all viral. And so we're going to have to go on some other tangent or some other paradigm of how we approach what's watchable and what isn't.
That's absolutely true. And not only is it, stickier than prime time, it's more people are using it than prime time. So it's a lot of folks watching. But let's check out the mailbag. On Patreon, S. Tim posted about our quick hit story on Warner Brothers changing the name of HBO Max again. And he posts, I've never cared one way or another if HBO was the name of the streaming service, as that brand never meant anything to me or to my cohort. It was just that thing that neither I nor my friends could afford. But I can't stop thinking that they're missing the real problem with that service. The way that they've killed off good shows early and then completely removed some of the great ones from the service. Early cancellations aren't unique to Max, but the streaming landscape, the tendency is to kill shows off while they're still young and thriving, and it seems stronger on HBO. And the disappearing shows was more of a unique thing to that platform.
It is, this is the thing when you're trying to do like another Game of Thrones, like something that is both socially visible, where people are constantly talking about it, whether it's if you're working enough in the office or with your friends or on a social media platform. I mean, there's a lot of dollars that at some point you're going to have to cut and say, like, are we burning tens of millions of dollars on a show that's no one watching, even if the season isn't finished, right? Because that's 5 more episodes and it's $50 more million you got to spend. It's doing quality content is such a crapshoot. You can have the best content available. If no one's watching it, you might as well just put your money in a pile and light it on fire.
Well, one of the problems is that back in the day, we used to have 3, maybe 4 channels where stuff came on, and they told us what time it was coming on, and that's all you had. You could go to 3 other places potentially if you had Fox, where you could watch something at 8 o'clock if you didn't like the other 2 or 3 channels that had something on at 8 o'clock. That is no longer the case here. So ultimately what they're doing now is they're testing and seeing, is this content, is it sticky? Do people like it? We didn't get the signals we thought we should get. Cancel it. Let's go on to the next thing. And they're doing that way more quickly than they ever did when network TV was a thing.
It's because they're not bound to those limitations, right? They haven't sold ad spots in the 36 episodes of Dynasty. Right. Like you need to make those shows because you already cashed their checks. Sure. Right. And so it's that there is a flexibility to being a streaming platform. Netflix has shown ruthlessness in that, right? Like, oh, this show's not no tweak. Right. And maybe some people might like it and they might start some sort of fan letter thing to keep it going. Like Veronica Mars, when was it Warner? I think Warner Brothers, they got a writing campaign. It's like, hey, we'll pay you money to produce this show or TV movie, which I think is a ludicrous concept. But it is showing like how things are changing. My kids will grow up in a world will have never understanding that a 1 hour show is actually only 45 minutes long and there's 5 ad spots.
Yeah. Well, I'm part of the problem because I will subscribe to sports content because that's the only way to get it. But I don't get invested in shows anymore. I wait till the show is done to figure out if they stick the landing because I am tired of getting invested in stuff that goes away. I'm not helping.
I do the same thing because it's like as soon as I hear something is canceled and I've only gotten 3-4 episodes in, I just stop right there. Yeah. It's like I'm done.
People are fickle, and ultimately, people are both a blessing and a curse when it comes to being a content producer. I don't mean no disrespect. I mean no disrespect. All right, second email we got from Anand Jr. Actually, it was from Patreon post, and thank you so much, Anand Jr. for posting this. He has answered my Ben Franklin comment about his glass musical instrument I was talking about earlier on the show yesterday. He says, I knew instantly the instrument Roger was trying to name, though I too forgot the name. Robb Scallion featured it on his channel a few years back. It's the glass harmonica. So imagine a harmonica without the H. And these are glass bowls nested inside on a spinning contraption, so they're spinning longitudinally. And you wet your fingers, and it's not unlike rubbing your fingers on the top of a champagne glass to elicit a certain sound. And you can play it pretty well. Oh, yeah, this individual.
We were definitely struggling yesterday trying to come up with the name of that thing. So I'm glad that folks that listen to the show, watch the show, are able to find it. So thanks again to thanks again to Anand Jr. for that, and also we need to thank you, Jenn Cutter, for hanging out with us. So tell us what you got going on. Yes.
Well, actually, I want to talk about Games Done Quick. There is a speedrunning gaming marathon going on right now, Summer Games Done Quick, which supports Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, and it runs 24 hours a day. It goes through till Sunday. It is a ton of fun. I love seeing gamers do good in the world. And if you've not seen speedrunning before, please check it out. It's awesome. It's hilarious. They're running it live. There's couch commentary. Everything gets explained. Trust me, you'll have a good time.
Well, folks, during the show, you've been submitting titles over at dtns.showbot.tv, and we've got some really good titles for you today. Let's start with GPEG 84. Intel's chips are falling.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like we've got an Intel theme here. Fred 819, Intel's chip dust.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I get it.
Larry in Atlanta chimes in with Cloudflare is the new sheriff in town. I kind of like that one. It's a good one.
Well, now I've got a theme song in my head because Nick with the C says, "Where in the world is Roger Chang?"
Oh, yeah. It's weird. For the longest time, there was a moment in time I used to confuse Carmen Sandiego, even though I grew up with Carmen Sandiego. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? With Where's Waldo? And in my mind, those just blended together. So it was Waldo wearing a trench coat with a red fedora.
I'd watch that.
Yeah. Well, Roger, what did we decide to go with today?
We went with G. James B's Scraping the Scrapers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
It is very interesting that Cloudflare is doing what it is, but I think it is not unexpected.
Yeah,
and I want to give a shout out to everyone in the chat room that's been supporting us on Twitch chat. Churros y Palomitos for resubscribing with Brian. They've been subscribed for 35 months. And Zoe Brings Bacon for cheering us on with bits. Thank you, one and all. And actually, everyone in the chat room having a lively conversation on the topics we are talking about right here on the show.
Folks, if you'd like a recap of the week's tech headlines with insights into how technology affects and disaffects African Americans, then check out the Tech John, where hosts yours truly, Stephanie Humphrey and Terrence Gaines, dive into top tech stories of the week from points of view you don't necessarily hear in mainstream media. New episodes drop Tuesday afternoons. You can find it wherever you find your podcast, or head over to the Tech John. That's the Tech JAWN.com. You can also watch us live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC. You can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We'll be back tomorrow with Patrick Norton and Lynn Peralta. See you tomorrow, folks.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.